Hello, and thank you for joining us here for this special presentation on our building material listings program and some of the procedures that go into the program. Over the past year here at Cal Fire Office State Fire Marshal, we've been working diligently to really streamline our processes, modernize some of our systems. We've heard a lot of feedback from those of you looking to list your products of the delays and the struggles. So we wanted to spend some time to really, do an educational opportunity to review some of the procedures to help those of you who have done this 100 times, or those of you that this is your first time listing a product, how to help us help you. Again, our overall approach here is really trying to see what we can do to really modernize this program. Now, I'm going to pass it over to David Castillo, who is our Senior Mechanical Engineer and Program Manager for the Building Material Listings Program, and he's going to go into depth on exactly what you need to do to get your product listed.
Well, thank you, Chief Berlant, for that introduction. Again, my name is Dave Castillo. I am going to be discussing with you the most common errors that slow down the process for a BML application and product review and finalized listing. So that being said, my contact information is below, office and email. If you have any questions regarding this, go ahead and just send me an email, phone call, whatever. So the purpose of the presentation is to review the Building Material Listing Program listing process so that manufacturers can fill out the paperwork correctly. The approval process proceeds smoothly and efficiently. Products get listed with greater speed and accuracy. The BML Workgroup was created by Chief Berlant to review, streamline, and create ideas to improve the listing process. It's made up of Daniel Berlant, Dave Castillo, Ganem Zuricot, Wendy Gifford, Jay Levy, John Potter, and Leon Newsom. A little history of the BML program. The Building Material Listing Program was created by Health and Safety Code Section 13114A. It states the State Fire Marshal, with the advice of the State Board of Fire Services, shall adopt regulations and standards as he or she may determine to be necessary to control the quality and installation of fire alarm systems, fire alarm devices, marketed, distributed, offered for sale, or sold in the state. To summarize this, it basically means if you want to sell, if you want to install fire alarm systems and devices, those components must be listed by the State Fire Marshal's office. One of the main purposes for that section we just read is to regulate the quality and installation of fire alarm systems and fire alarm devices in California. Products required to be listed are fire alarm systems and devices, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide devices, roof wood shakes and shingles, liquefied petroleum gas detectors, automatic high pressure shutoff devices, burglar bars and safety release mechanisms for emergency escape rescue windows or doors. Products not required to be listed: wildland urban interface building materials, fire sprinklers, building assemblies, fire dampers, fire doors and windows, and I will add anything that is not in the list of required, does not require to be listed. And most people get really confused, so if you have any questions, just give me a holler shoot me an email, and I'll just point you to the codes, so forth, where you can go to get information. One of the main questions is, why are CSFM listings required? Well, they're required mainly by statute, Health and Safety Code, which we just read. But more importantly, they provide the building authorities, architects, engineers, contractors, and fire service with a reliable and readily available source of information when they do not have the staff or expertise to assess the materials themselves. A lot of times they don't have the in-house staff, personnel, expertise, and they look to us to do that. Industry nerdles and CFM working together. Well, the Office of the State Fire Marshal, NEMA, the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, and Underwriters Labs all got together trying to work together to make the BML process smoother and more efficient, because it's taken in the past sometimes several weeks, several months to get a listing through. The Fast Track program was created in November of 2007. It's only for listings of fire alarm products. The test reports don't need to be provided at the time, but the test had to have been done. The test report shall be submitted for evaluation within 60 days from the time of listing. It's a very short turnaround time, typically 10 days, and you will submit the product without the test report, but you will have the application filled out. You'll let us know you're going for Fast Track, and then you will also have the NRTL's accreditation certification sheet. Some of the requirements for listings are a completed application, the complete test report, manufacturer's engineering drawings. Now in this one, I get a lot of questions. Why do you want the engineering drawings? Well, the reason why is because we look at those drawings to see if they meet the typical UL standard. And then they are not subject to public review, but we do keep a record in-house so that we know they were built, manufactured, installed, so forth, to standards. We also want the manufacturer's installation, operation, and maintenance manual. This is critical because Underwriters Lab has somewhat control over that. The manufacturer cannot change their installation, operation, and maintenance manual without going through UL. This is critical for some of the smoke alarms, fire alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, and detectors, components, so forth. The NRTLs follow up on inspection procedures and then listing fees. Some of the difficulties in obtaining a BML approval. Typically, it has been the OSFM side administrative and technical holdup, which is due to personnel. We've only had one person, and in fact now I am the only person reviewing BML reports, technical specs, so forth. And then we have one part-time administrative person assisting me. On the manufacturer side, a lot of times the application is just not filled out correctly. And the contact that is on that application is the only person we'll talk to at first. because we don't know if somebody else is calling about your product. So on the manufacturer side, we ask that they fill out the application completely and correctly, and we will go through that shortly. The contact information is available. That contact is our first phone call or email. If it's a technical question and they can't answer it, then we're okay being forwarded to an engineer. But that does take time, so it does hold up the process. On the NRTL side, the test reports sometimes are not complete. And if they're going for a fast track, the fast track letter is incorrect. Now, talking about the NRTLs, when we say the test report is not complete, what we're referring to is that they may have deemed it necessary to not have to test to a certain part of a standard. They'll say, we don't need to do this part of the test because we feel it meets it because of, well, those are engineering judgments, and we are okay with that, but we have to make sure we agree that the engineering judgment meets current codes and standards in California. Some of the solutions to streamline BML approvals have been developed and are continually being developed by this program to improve communications between three involved parties. Also, to use technology to improve the listing process, and then increase accountability to make applications better reflect information in test reports. Updates to the BML approval process. A 10-day draft approval after email notification of receipt. This only applies to fire alarm systems and components. NRTLs must use a standard format letter and then the revised application. Those are the updates. In the application itself, we are looking for complete information to be filled out. Company name, that's the name we want to see on the test report as well as on the application. If they're different, we don't know if somebody else is applying for that product. The CSFM assigned company number, that's a number we assign to you. If you already have a listing, it's the middle four numbers of that 12-digit number. If you don't have a listing and this is your first time submitting to us, we will assign you a number. The primary contact. We want to know who the primary contact is that we should be talking to or emailing to initially ask questions when we have questions. It's imperative that person is somebody that can at least get us to the right information so that the process is not held up. We've added a secondary contact to the application. This typically is only going to be used when we can't get hold of the primary. Company address, we need to know the address because that's also on the test report. And then the application fast track. If it is a fast track, please check that box and then use the pull down for the NRTL agency. The only three agencies that have actually been approved for fast track are Underwriters Lab, Intertech, and Factory Mutual. This part of the application, we want you to figure out what type of listing you are going for. If you have questions, email or call, but For the most part, the very first box is for a new listing only. The specific category from the category list, click on that category list, the blue writing, and you will be pointed to the PDF of all the current listings we have. This is not exhaustive. We can always make a new category for a new listing. Then below in red, it says, provide the check money order for the fee amount, a complete copy of the test report, manufacturer's data sheet specs, installations instruction, operation manual, illustrations, drawings, and a completed app. That's for a new listing. If you have all those, it'll really help speed up the process. Technical revision. This is a revision to an existing listing only. Again, put the existing listing number. If we don't have that there, we don't know where to go to start. Then we have to make the contact with the primary contact. So again, provide the check or money order. I think money order is kind of obsolete, but provide the check fee for the listing, technical revision, a copy of the revised test report pages corroborating the revision, and the same stuff as before. And now a cross listing. A cross listing is when a company manufactures a product, markets it, sells it, distributes it in California, and you want to take a copy of their product and put your name on it. Nothing wrong with that. This is how you do it with cross-listing. So you will check that box, give us the existing listing number, and then you will provide, again, the fee, a copy of the testing lab correlation sheet, which correlates the original manufacturer's product to your product. Then a copy of the manufacturer's data sheet specs and a completed application. You can see we don't need the full report here, mainly because the testing was done under the original manufacturer's product. And then last is a non-technical revision. Please include the listing number, check for listee's name and or address change. Now, if it's anything else, it would be considered a technical revision. Because if it's a non-technical, typically it won't even go to the engineer here for review. It's just a name change or an address change. Any questions, please email or call. Continuing on, this is probably one of the most important parts of the application. A simple description of the product, make and model, and the explanation of action needed. It has to reflect the box you checked. If you say down here, new product listing, but you check technical revision up top, right away a red flag comes up. And vice versa. If you checked technical revision and then you say, oh, I just want to do a name change, another red flag. And that's probably one of the more common mistakes. Once you fill in simple description and explanation, we can use that to figure out, oh, this is all they need. Certification below, we need the signature, we need the printed name of the signee, the date, and the title. Moving on, please mail the application to the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and you can read right here on the application the address, the state, excuse me, phone number, and email. That's where you want to send it to. For assistance on completing the application, there's a link we've provided you that describes what we just talked about. If you call with questions, please have your application in front of you, and then we will guide you to how to finish it. Now, an important part, if you look down here, is the optional. A lot of times, manufacturers and so forth know their product better than anyone else. And I mean more than the sales reps or anything else. It's important that they know that, because a lot of times they will give us a draft of how they'd like it to look. They would just take a copy of one of the listings for their current products and modify it and say, we would like it to look like this. That helps us quite a bit. Now, if we have a disagreement, that's when we get on the phone. If it's administrative in nature, the administrative personnel will call you and try to clarify. If it's a technical, the engineer will give you a call and or try to clarify. But that's where it's important to have good contacts for the primary and the secondary.
Okay, thanks, David, for that. So this last section here we want to talk about is just kind of the future of the Building Material Listings Program and where we go from here and how we've been working to improve many of our business processes when it comes to the BML program. So first off, earlier this year, the legislature actually appropriated additional positions for the BML program. So we'll be adding a supervising mechanical engineer, a second mechanical engineer, analyst position, as well as office support. So we're really going from what has been about 1.5 positions supporting the BML program to now 5 positions. And so that should help us significantly increase our turnaround times when it comes to listing. Of course, following all the items that David has provided throughout this presentation on how to make sure your application is submitted completely, that obviously will help us as well. So additional staffing already in the process, many positions being filled as we speak. The next thing we've been working significantly on the last several years is an electronic application submission process and program. So a couple years ago, we launched a new program called GovModus Fire. GovModus Fire for us in our division is an electronic application program for our licenses. We've been working to put the BML program and this application into that system as well. But to be honest with you, we've had some hurdles and we've had some items that just don't fit as cleanly as we would have liked when we first began this process. And so while we work to clean those issues out and to fix them, we are holding off actually using the GovModus system for the BML program. But once we get to that point, we think that going to an electronic application process will be much faster. The other item that we've been working on too, that we hope to install fairly soon, is an electronic fee payment. We realize that it's very inconvenient to write a check, and to be honest with you, the check process, depositing it and accounting for it, really takes up a good portion of our time to actually turn around a listing. Our business practices when it comes to depositing checks here in this department, there's a lot of checks and balances that make paper checks a lengthy process. And so looking at going towards being able to accept electronic payment. And then lastly, one thing that we want to hit on is all these things I just mentioned that we are underway as far as staffing, as we move to using new tools like electronic application, electronic fees, that does come at a cost. And so the reality is, in order for us to really meet the workload of today and use systems of today, our costs are going up. And so we did a full workload analysis to determine how much time we spend on each of the renewals, new listings, etc. And so we have been able to work on, what does it cost us then to meet that workload? And so in the coming months, we'll be submitting a new draft fee schedule. It will go through the regulatory process. And so there will be an opportunity for public comment. But again, this is going to be a necessary step in order for us to really meet our 2020 abilities to truly support your companies and your products here in California.
That being said, that's the end of this. If you have any questions, please, you can email or call us at the BML program. At the beginning of this presentation, you had my name and my email and my phone number. So I hope this clarifies questions for speeding up the process for submission for a BML product. Thank you. Have a great day.